Mr. Rence strides back up from the basement, his mind focused on the next phase of his plan. The cold, sterile air of the Villain League's science lab seems even more oppressive now that he's left the others behind. Each step he takes echoes in the empty corridors, the tension building with every footfall. He knows he doesn't have much time to find the weapons, but staying calm is key. As he rounds a corner, he suddenly comes face to face with a tall, imposing figure. The villain leader, Plasma Man, stands before him, his body radiating an unnatural heat. His eyes glow with suspicion, and there's a dangerous, calculating look on his face.
Just the guard I've been looking for. I was up at the main headquarters, but then I got a call from the Snake. Said one of the guards looked off. Said you don't look like anyone I've hired recently.
Mr. Rence's heart pounds in his chest, but he keeps his expression neutral. His mind races, searching for a plausible explanation, something that could diffuse the situation. He can't blow his cover now.
You don't look familiar to me either, and I know every recruit that comes through here.
Mr. Rence forces himself to relax, tapping into his experience in deception. He lowers his voice, taking on the same cold, emotionless tone the other guards use.
That's because I wasn't hired through the usual channels. I was brought in for a special assignment by one of the higher-ups, an emergency hire. There was a security breach in one of the other labs, and they needed someone to transfer here fast. I didn't go through the standard procedures.
An emergency hire? Why wasn't I informed?
You've been away at the main headquarters. The higher-ups figured it was easier to handle internally without bothering you. I was assigned here to keep an eye on things while they figured out the breach. I'm just following orders.
Plasma Man stares at him for a long moment, the heat around him intensifying, making the air shimmer. Mr. Rence keeps his expression still, willing himself not to crack under the villain's gaze. Inside, he's on high alert, ready to act if Plasma Man doesn't buy the lie.
I don't like surprises. If you're telling the truth, then it looks like the higher-ups are getting sloppy with their communication. But if I find out you're lying, it won't end well for you. Do you understand?
Completely. I'm here to help, nothing more.
Plasma Man gives him one last lingering look before turning away.
Fine, get back to work, and if you see anything suspicious, you report to me directly, no exceptions.
As Plasma Man walks away, Mr. Rence exhales slowly, allowing himself to breathe again. He knows he's not out of danger yet, but he managed to buy himself some time. Now he just needs to move quickly, find those weapons, and get back to the team before anyone else starts asking questions.
After his tense encounter with Plasma Man, Mr. Rence quickly makes his way through the labyrinthine halls of the villain laboratory. His pulse still races, but he keeps his movements steady, knowing that every second counts. Plasma Man's suspicion was a close call, but now that he's free of immediate danger, he can focus on the task at hand. He reaches one of the main labs, a sprawling room filled with high-tech equipment, weapon prototypes, and strange devices scattered across the workbenches. The air is thick with the scent of chemicals and the faint hum of machinery. Mr. Rence steps inside, his eyes scanning the room. This is where the Villain League's most dangerous technology is developed, and now it's his chance to gather intel. Mr. Rence approaches one of the workbenches, his attention drawn to a set of sleek, black, cylindrical devices. He picks one up, inspecting the small holographic display on the side.
Pulse disruptors.
These devices can emit an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to knock out any electronic system within a 100-meter radius. Mr. Rence quickly realizes their potential. If used on the battlefield, these could disable communication lines, power grids, or even the advanced tech used by heroes. Mr. Rence carefully sets the disruptor down and moves to the next table. He finds a long, rifle-like object with an eerie, green glowing core embedded in the center.
This must be one of their new energy weapons.
The label reads Neutron Cannon. This weapon fires concentrated neutron blasts capable of disintegrating solid objects at the atomic level. Worse, it could bypass most energy shields and armor that heroes rely on. The implications are terrifying. Mr. Rence spots a smaller, wrist-mounted device that resembles a gauntlet. He picks it up and notices several slots for small glowing cartridges. The label simply reads Venom Delivery System.
whispers, the snake's venom.
The cartridges contain a synthesized version of the snake's venom, designed to be injected at close range. He pockets one of the cartridges, knowing it will be critical for the Hero League to study. In the corner of the lab, he finds a small drone, barely larger than a hand.
Shadow spies.
These stealth drones can infiltrate heavily guarded locations undetected, plant explosives, or relay real-time surveillance to the Villain League. Mr. Rence gathers as much intel as he can, carefully noting the details of each weapon and the potential threat they pose. Mr. Rence pockets one of the pulse disruptors and a few cartridges from the Venom delivery system. He heads toward the exit, his mind racing with how to safely extract the team and bring this information back to Hero League headquarters. Plasma Man sits in his office at the Villain League Science Lab, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the arm of his chair. The dull hum of the lab equipment outside the door irritates him.
I hate this office. It's nothing like the one at the main headquarters. Too cold, too cramped. I belong back at the main base, not babysitting a lab in the middle of nowhere.
His mind drifts back to the reason he had to come down to this forsaken place. The snake's warning about the suspicious guard echoes in his head.
I know my men, I know who I've hired, who I've seen, and that guard, he looked off, too confident, too new.
Plasma Man leans back in his chair, his glowing eyes narrowing as he mentally sifts through the faces of the heroes he knows about.
Mr. Rence, it has to be. That hero with the shape-shifting abilities. How did I not see it earlier?
He rises from his chair, pacing back and forth.
The nerve of him sneaking into my lab. He won't get far. If he's here, the others must be close by. I'll make sure none of them leave this place alive.
In the basement holding cells, Colton, Zach and Mr. Dugan sit in tense silence. The cold, damp air of the cell seems to weigh on them.
How long do you think Mr. Rence is going to be? I mean, it's been a while. What if something went wrong?
I don't know. I trust him, but this is risky. We're sitting ducks if anyone finds us here.
We'll just have to be ready to break out if we need to, but he said he'd be back. We just have to wait a little longer.
There's a moment of uneasy silence before footsteps echo down the hallway. The group tenses, ready for anything. The familiar form of Mr. Rence appears in the dim light, still disguised as the guard. He glances around to make sure no one else is watching before unlocking the cell door and stepping inside.
Sorry it took so long. I had to dodge a few suspicious looks and grab what we came for. I've got some of their weapons and intel. We need to move fast. Plasma Man might be onto us.
Did you get what we need?
Enough to bring back to HQ, but we need to get out of here before they realize what's happening.
I thought for a second something had gone wrong. Let's get out of here before it does.
Lead the way, we'll cover you if things get messy.
Mr. Rence leads the group back down the corridor, his mind already calculating the quickest escape route. With Plasma Man hot on their trail, they had little time to make it out of the facility unscathed.
As the group approaches the exit, the hallway grows quieter, their footsteps barely audible as they sense the finish line ahead. The tension lingers in the air, but they push forward, hoping their mission will end without further incident. Suddenly, a blast of heat surges toward them from behind. Colton barely has time to react before a plasma ball, crackling with fiery energy, slams into the floor in front of them, sending shockwaves through the corridor. The explosion knocks the heroes backwards, skidding across the floor. When they look up, Plasma Man stands at the far end of the hallway, his hands aglow with another deadly plasma ball ready to be thrown. His eyes burn with rage as his voice echoes through the hall.
You thought you could just waltz into my lab and steal from the Villain League? You'll regret underestimating us.
Beside him, the snake slithers forward, his venomous fangs gleaming in the low light. His tongue flickers out, tasting the fear in the air.
Heroes, how unfortunate for you that I'm still hungry.
Colton, Zach, Mr. Rence, Mr. Dugan, and Quantum Shift rise to their feet, instinctively forming a defensive stance. They exchange nervous glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. They're outnumbered, trapped between two of the most dangerous villains the League has ever faced. Plasma Man's smirk widens.
I think I have a fitting punishment. Snake, why don't you make this quick and bite them all? Let's see how long it takes for their bodies to stop fighting once your venom spreads.
The snake's grin spreads wide, his fangs dripping with venom as he inches closer.
I'd be honored. Who wants to be first?
The heroes are paralyzed for a moment, knowing full well what the snake's bite could do. One bite, and the venom would course through their bodies, shutting down their organs in minutes. Colton's hands crackle with electricity as he braces himself for a fight, but even he knows the odds are slim. Mr. Dugan's blades flash, ready to strike, but Zack, ever the tactician, whispers urgently.
We need a plan now.
Quantum Shift's eyes narrow as he steps forward, speaking up before the snake can strike.
Hold on, before you bite anyone, maybe you should think about what you're really dealing with.
Plasma Man tilts his head, intrigued but unimpressed.
Is that supposed to scare me?
Quantum Shift's mind races as he continues.
You think we're just here to steal weapons? You're not thinking big enough. The Hero League has already learned more about your operation than you realize. And if we don't make it back, more heroes will come. Ones you aren't ready for.
Plasma Man's plasma ball dims slightly as he narrows his eyes, considering the words.
Go on.
You can kill us here and now. But if you do, you'll spark a full-on war between the Hero League and the Villain League. Your lab will be the first target. And you won't be able to defend it from the assault that follows. Are you ready for that?
The snake hisses, annoyed by the delay, but Plasma Man is now watching closely, weighing his options. The threat of a larger conflict wasn't something he could afford, not with the lab's secrets still intact. Zack glances at Colton, silently urging him to be ready. Colton's hand twitches, sparks flickering from his fingertips as he waits for the right moment. Plasma Man finally speaks, his voice dripping with malice.
You think you can bargain your way out of this? I could kill you all right now and deal with the consequences later. But you raise a good point.
He turns to the snake, who is growing impatient.
Hold off for a moment.
The snake hisses in frustration.
You're wasting time, Plasma Man. Let me finish this.
But before the snake can lunge again, Quantum Shift gives a subtle nod to Zack, who uses his telekinesis to lift a piece of debris and send it crashing into the snake, knocking him back and disrupting his attack. Colton seizes the moment.
Now!
With a burst of electricity, he throws a bolt of lightning straight at Plasma Man, forcing him to dodge backward. Quantum Shift manipulates the floor beneath them, sending the molecular structure of the ground into disarray, creating cracks that further throw off their enemy's balance. Mr. Rence, still in his disguised form, quickly gestures for the group to make a break for it.
Go now!
With Plasma Man and the snake momentarily disoriented, the heroes make a dash for the exit. The door looms ahead, freedom within reach, but they know they have mere moments before the villains recover. Plasma Man's furious shout echoes behind them as they sprint toward the exit. But for now, they have the upper hand, and their mission is far from over. As the heroes dash toward the exit, Plasma Man's face twists with fury.
Snake, go after them. Don't let them escape.
The snake hisses in response, venom dripping from his fangs as he prepares to chase down the fleeing heroes. But just as he slithers forward, Mr. Rence, still in his disguise as a villain guard, steps in front of him, blocking the path.
Hold up!
Mr. Rence says sharply, raising his hands in a gesture to stall them. The snake snarls, his sharp teeth glinting in the low light. Plasma Man's eyes blaze as he approaches.
Get out of the way, unless you're looking for the same punishment.
But Mr. Rence stands firm, his voice steady.
Before you go after them, you might want to think about what you're risking.
Plasma Man glares at him, the heat around him intensifying.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Rence, still in his villain guise, takes a step forward, meeting Plasma Man's heated gaze.
You're chasing a group of heroes, but have you considered what they have over you? The Hero League already has two of your strongest allies in custody. Thomas, the arsonist. He's locked up in the Hero League's prison. Remember? One of the fiercest villains you've got.
Plasma Man's eyes flicker with recognition, though his expression remains furious.
And then there's the Clover. The one who almost took over the world with that never-ending storm on St. Patrick's Day. The Hero League defeated him, and he's still in their custody, locked away.
Plasma Man's plasma energy dims slightly as he listens, a deep scowl forming on his face. He knows exactly what Mr. Rence is saying, and the reality of it makes him hesitate.
You can go after us now, sure. But think about what will happen if you start a full-scale war with the Hero League. They'll keep Thomas and the Clover locked away for the rest of their lives. You'll lose two of your most valuable allies. Are you ready to deal with that?
The snake growls impatiently beside him, eager to strike, but Plasma Man holds up a hand to stop him. The tension in the hallway thickens, as Plasma Man's glowing eyes narrow, his fury momentarily tempered by the harsh truth of what Mr. Rence is saying.
You're bluffing.
Plasma Man sneers, though there's an edge of doubt in his voice.
No bluff. You know it's true, the Hero League doesn't mess around. If you make this fight bigger than it needs to be, you'll regret it. You've already lost two of your best.
For a long moment, Plasma Man seems to weigh his options, his fists clenched, his plasma energy still simmering. His rage is palpable, but the risk of losing more than just this fight gnaws at him. Finally, with a furious snarl, Plasma Man steps back, his body still glowing with intense heat.
This isn't over. You'll pay for this. All of you.
Mr. Rence holds his ground, his eyes steady.
Maybe, but not today.
With a final glance of pure hatred, Plasma Man turns and storms down the hallway, the snake slithering after him, hissing in frustration. The villains disappear into the shadows, leaving the heroes with a precious window of time to escape. Once they're gone, Mr. Rence quickly signals the others, dropping his guard disguise.
Let's move, now.
In Connor's office at the Hero League headquarters, Mr. Callaway paces restlessly. His thoughts are consumed by the mission, and it shows in the tense set of his jaw and the furrow in his brow. He stops, looking out the window, but his mind is far from the view outside.
Connor, this mission is eating away at me. I know Colton, Zach, Mr. Rence, and Mr. Dugan have potential, but they're still new. And Quantum Shift, he's experienced, sure, but I can't shake this feeling. What if something happens to them?
Connor, seated behind his desk, looks up from a report he's reviewing.
You're letting your nerves get the best of you, Callaway. They're capable. Quantum Shift will make sure the mission is handled.
Callaway shakes his head, frustration building.
But what if it's not enough? They've never gone up against the Villain League alone before. They've always had backup, my backup. They're facing Plasma Man and the Snake. I should be down there with them. You know that's not an option. You said it yourself earlier, you'd be a liability. Your immortality makes you a target. The second they realize you're involved, they'll stop at nothing to capture you. It puts the entire mission at risk.
Callaway's eyes flash with frustration.
So what am I supposed to do? Just sit here? Wait for something to go wrong while they're out there facing who knows what? I can't stand this.
Connor stands, his tone turning sharper.
Callaway, you're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. You're not thinking like a leader right now. You want to rush in, but that's exactly why you can't. You've got to trust them. You trained them. They know what they're doing.
Callaway rounds on him, the argument heating up.
They're not ready, Connor. You know that as well as I do. You're acting like this is a normal mission. It's not. And if something happens to them, I'll never forgive myself for standing by.
Connor opens his mouth to retort when his gaze suddenly shifts out the window. His expression changes, and he points.
Look.
Callaway turns, his anger momentarily forgotten. Outside, Mr. Rence's blue superspeed van is pulling into the Hero League headquarters parking lot, its sleek body gleaming as it comes to a stop. The rest of the team, Colton, Zach, Mr. Dugan, and Quantum Shift, begin stepping out, safe and intact. For a moment, both men are silent, the tension between them dissipating as relief washes over them. Connor glances at Callaway, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth.
Looks like they didn't need you after all.
Callaway exhales, the weight of his worry lifting slightly.
Maybe not this time, but that doesn't mean I'll stop worrying about them.
Connor nods, his tone softening.
They did good. And you've got to trust that they'll keep doing good. You train them well, Callaway. You've got to let them grow into their roles.
Callaway remains quiet for a moment, watching the group as they make their way inside.
Yeah, but I'll always be ready, just in case.
Mr. Callaway bolts out of Connor's office and races down the stairs, excitement and relief washing over him. His footsteps echo through the halls as he heads toward the main entrance, eager to greet the team. His mind races with questions, but mostly he's just grateful to see them back, safe and sound. As the doors to Hero League headquarters slide open, Colton, Zach, Mr. Rence, Mr. Dugan, and Quantum Shift step inside, the weariness of the mission visible on their faces. Mr. Callaway barely waits for them to make it through before he rushes forward, a wide grin on his face. Mr. Callaway, how did it go? Everyone okay?
We're fine, thanks to Mr. Rence. He really pulled off something incredible.
I had to think quickly. I shapeshifted into one of the Villain League guards to throw them off our trail. Then I pretended to lock the team up in one of the cells just to keep them out of sight while I moved around.
Yeah, Mr. Rence played it perfectly. He had us locked up, but he came back just in time before things got ugly.
He even managed to snag some weapon samples while he was at it. We've got some high-tech stuff for the Hero League scientists to analyze later. Mr. Callaway, weapon samples. What kind of stuff did you find?
Pulse disruptors, energy cannons, and even some venom delivery systems designed to mimic the snake's venom. It's serious tech, way more dangerous than we thought. The scientists are going to want to take a close look at this. Mr. Callaway, great work. You've just saved us a lot of trouble in the future by getting these.
It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. We ran into Plasma Man and the Snake. Mr. Callaway. What? Plasma Man and the Snake? You mean you were face-to-face with them?
Yeah, they caught us just as we were about to leave. Plasma Man threw a plasma ball at us and knocked us backward. Then they tried to corner us.
It was intense. The snake wanted to bite us. His venom would have killed us in minutes. Mr. Callaway, you were up against those two. How did you get away?
Mr. Rence came through again. He stalled them, told them to think about the villains we have locked up in Hero League custody, Thomas the Arsonist and the Clover. It made Plasma Man hesitate long enough for us to get away. Mr. Callaway, you got lucky. Plasma Man and the Snake together. That's no joke. If Mr. Rence hadn't been quick on his feet. Mr. Callaway, I'm glad you're all okay, but that's a lot closer than I'd like. You did a hell of a job today keeping everyone safe. But next time be careful. Those two could have killed all of you.
We know, but we handled it, and we're back in one piece. Mr. Callaway? Yeah, you handled it. But still, next time don't take any chances. You're all too valuable to lose.
The group stands together in a moment of quiet relief, knowing how close they came to danger, but also knowing that they made it out together. Mr. Rence takes a deep breath, the adrenaline from the mission still humming in his veins, as he quietly excuses himself from the group. Without saying much, he heads down the familiar halls of Hero League headquarters, his destination clear in his mind. The Hero League Science Lab is where the real work would begin now. And he knew how important it was to get the weapons he had recovered into the right hands. As he reaches the lower levels of the headquarters, the atmosphere changes. The cool, sterile air of the lab greets him, along with the faint hum of various machines and equipment. Scientists and technicians bustle about, running tests and analyzing data on various screens. The lab is alive with activity, but Rence's mission is singular. He approaches one of the lead scientists, Dr. Brackett, a serious-looking man with glasses and a clipboard, who is always deep in thought. Dr. Brackett looks up from his work as Mr. Rence steps forward. Dr. Brackett, Rence, you're back. I heard about the mission. What have you got for us?
These are some of the weapons we recovered. The Villain League has been working on some serious tech, pulse disruptors that can knock out electronics in a wide radius, and a venom delivery system that mimics the snake's venom. There are also some energy weapons we couldn't bring, but the neutron cannons they have are capable of breaking down materials at the atomic level. Dr. Brackett, this is incredible. The technology here is far more advanced than we anticipated. If these weapons were mass-produced, it could tip the balance. That's exactly what we were worried about. We didn't have time to analyze it on site, but from what we saw, these are just a small sample of what they're building. Dr. Brackett, this could be catastrophic if it falls into the wrong hands. The fact that they've managed to synthesize the snake's venom like this, it means anyone could be equipped with his deadly bite. That's why we need to analyze everything and figure out what they're planning next. I don't know how far along they are, but these weapons alone are enough to cause serious damage. Dr. Brackett, we'll get to work on this immediately. The Hero League needs to know exactly what we're up against. Good. Keep me updated on what you find. There's a lot more going on down there than we thought, and if they're getting ready for something bigger, we need to be prepared. Dr. Brackett, we'll work as fast as we can, and Rence, good job getting these back. You might have just bought us the time we need.
Mr. Rence watches as the lab team gets to work, feeling a weight lift slightly from his shoulders. He'd done his part, and now it was up to the scientists to uncover the full scope of the Villain League's plans. But as he turned to leave the lab, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Connor sits at his desk, jotting down notes about the mission in the Villain League Science Lab. The operation had been a success, but it had been closer than he liked. Still, the team had proven themselves under immense pressure, and he made sure to note their performance in his log. Just as he finishes his last note, the door to his office swings open, violently. Mr. Callaway, Connor, we need to talk, and we need to do it now. Connor, Callaway, what's going on? Mr. Callaway, you know what's going on. It's about Colton, Zach, Mr. Dugan, and Mr. Rence. We need to talk about them. I think we need to let them go. Connor, let them go. What are you talking about? Mr. Callaway, I'm talking about what happened in the Villain League's lab. They almost got themselves killed by Plasma Man and the Snake. It was too close, Connor. Way too close. We're lucky they got out of there alive, but next time, they might not be so lucky. They're not ready for this kind of danger. Connor, are you serious? You're the one who brought them to the Hero League. You believed in them because you saw their potential. And now, because they had a close call, you want to cut them loose? Mr. Callaway, you didn't see what they were up against. They could have been killed in that lab. Plasma Man and the Snake are no joke. They've never faced villains like that without me there to protect them. It was too close, and I won't risk their lives again. Connor, you can't be serious. These are fantastic superheroes we're talking about. They've shown incredible promise, and they've only just started. They made it out because they worked together, and they did the job. Mr. Callaway, they're young, inexperienced. They didn't ask for this life. It all started because of some accident when they drank Mr. Rence's explosive Mountain Dew just to see what would happen. Then they showed up at my house with their new powers, confused and looking for guidance. They didn't ask to become heroes, Connor. Connor, and who was the one who saw something special in them? You. You're the one who brought them here. You knew they had the potential to be great, and you believed in them enough to give them a shot. And now you want to throw them away just because things got tough? Mr. Callaway, I brought them here because I believed in their potential, yes. But I didn't bring them here to get killed. They're not ready for the kind of enemies we're facing. They were nearly crushed in that lab, and next time, they might not be so lucky. I won't let their blood be on my hands. Connor, they didn't just survive, Callaway, they thrived. They showed what they're capable of, even in the face of overwhelming odds. They're growing and they're learning, and you know that. This close call, it's part of being a hero, Mr. Callaway, but they didn't ask for this life, Connor. They stumbled into it by accident, and I've been the one pushing them down this path. I don't know if I can keep doing that. Connor, I get it. You care about them. You want to protect them. But they're not kids anymore, Callaway. They've chosen this path. Whether they got their powers by accident or not, they've stepped up. They've proven they can handle this, even when it's tough. And you, of all people, should see that. Mr. Callaway, I don't want to see them hurt. Connor, neither do I. But they're stronger than you think. We'll make sure they're ready for whatever comes next. Together. With that, the tension in the room begins to ease, though Callaway's worry lingers as he slowly leaves the office. His mind still conflicted over the future of the young heroes he's grown to care about so deeply.